This video is going to be a little bit of a departure from what I usually do. It's still learning how to work with the material. What I'm doing here, though, is I'm sampling a video from somebody named SciManDan. I'm a subscriber over there. I recommend it. He debunks flat earthers and Christian claims, all kinds of stuff. He's a really intelligent guy, and I love it. But I've got a video here where I sampled one of his. I'm leaving him in here in this it's not a conversation. What he's done is he's taken a video from a young guy that is an apologist that is trying to teach other Christians how to prove in three different ways how to prove God exists to atheists. And it's interesting. Well, I'm going to leave Dan's comments in as well, but I'm going to also add my own in because I've got another layer of interpretation that goes into this material that the theist and the atheist isn't seeing. But the theist right here, you can see this. There's a really confident basket case thinking that it's like, wow, how do brains work like that? There's just a lot of variation. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. And everybody else, I'll put a link to the full video below if you want to watch it. It's only about 13 minutes long. Okay, let's get into it.
He seems very confident that he can prove God to any atheist. Well, I'm an atheist, so let's test this out, shall we? Take it away, my friend.
I'm going to explain how you, as a Christian, can prove to any atheist you meet that God exists. A bunch of this is going to be from a Bonson lecture. If you want to listen to that, link is in the bio. Before I give you the proofs for God's existence, we have to recognize two things right off the bat. Number one, Romans 1 tells us that every human already knows God, but they did not glorify him as God or give him thanks, but they became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish heart was darkened.
Let me stop you right there. No one knows who God is when they're born. And actually, it depends very much on your country of birth, on which God you believe in.
Well, I want to add my own comments here. Think through this on your own. We don't need people to tell us things. Imagine triplets born in the outback, and something happens for some reason. We're just making this up here. 3 kids that are taken out. One of them is raised for some reason in Saudi Arabia from an infant, one in the American Southwest, and one in Soviet Russia. And 40 years later, without knowing each other, they get together, not even knowing that they're brothers, and they start talking, and they hate each other. They don't talk the same. They don't sound the same. They don't believe the same things. And why is that? They don't even know each other's languages. Why is that? We're born ready to program, and religion is not something you find on your own, like food and water. It's something that somebody has to tell you. Okay, so I also want to say that now that verse that he read there's a layer of interpretation there that he's not getting, and that neither one of them know what that is. This is a personal verse. I don't know if now's the best time to do this or not, but let's do it. Let's do this right now. First of all, without pictures, I'm going to just talk through this. You have to be a thinker to get through this stuff. You really have to be a thinker, but everybody's a thinker, but you have to think clearly. You're thinking with an open mind, not a closed mind. You're thinking to find what's there instead of trying to prove what you believe is there, that you're convinced is there. All right. If I were to encode a verse, in life there is cause and effect. And if I've had a bad experience happen to me in life, we all have to think of this on our own. Put yourself into this story. If I think of something that you continually suffer from in your life, something happened in the past, and because of it, this keeps happening over and over again. That's a cause and effect. There's a seed planted, and because of it, something continues to reoccur. And unless you resolve this issue right here, it's going to happen over and over again. That's the lesson that I want to teach. And you can look at that and go, yeah, that happens all right. I don't need anybody to tell me that. I think it through in my own head. And the stuff that was bad that happened to me keeps bugging me today because it's unresolved. And I live through that, and it hurts me. Okay, so that having been said, you tell people that and it doesn't go anywhere. The population is not going to spread that. They're not going to teach that. So you're going to take that lesson and nest it in various verbiage ways, like a fable would or something like that, except that there's something very specific here. They all become mentally interactive verses if you understand them correctly. And in this case, that's exactly what we're doing. But I want to spread that around somehow. So I'm going to nest it in verbiage, something like an anchored ship cannot sail. And that'll pass around. That people will spread that around. But it's analogous verbiage. I am the ship, and the anchor is what I'm hanging on to. This is telling me that as long as I'm hanging on to something, that I'm going to just keep re-experiencing it. Now, people are going to look at that verse and not interpret it at that mental level. they're not going to interact with it that way, not that deep. They're going to interact with it in this way. There's going to be a literalist who says, yeah, if you don't throw the anchor out, your ship's floating off or crashing on the shore or something like that. You put an anchor down to keep it from floating off. And that's a true thing. You can't argue with that. But there's more to the verse than that. There's deeper layers. The second layer is where somebody understands it is about them, but it's still about the physical world. It's still turned outward, looking outward. And somebody could say, wow, you know what that's teaching me right there? An anchor, I'm the ship, and as long as I'm hanging on to my old relationships, jobs, habits, I'm not going to get anywhere. And you go, oh, okay, it makes sense. But somebody else comes along and says, no, my first recollection was being in an orphanage, being abused, being molested, having all kinds of issues. I headed off in life. I was headed to jail. I had no control. I didn't have a good set of rules, a structure. But I found a group that I hang with, that I participate with, and I get into things here. It gives me a different purpose in life. It's completely something different. Hanging on to something prevents you from sailing off into the bad seas. And you'd go, well, that sounds good too, but they're opposite of each other. They're not the right thing. That's the layer right there where the theist and the atheist are arguing whether or not this is true. That one wasn't a religious verse, but if it was, an anchored ship cannot sail, saith the Lord. Okay, so that proves right there it's God. No, it's not God. It can't be. It's something else that ship anchored. We already know that on its own. That's where this conversation is happening. They're not going to that layer of I am the ship. All right, that's simple. This is where it starts getting dense. They're going to do that over and over and over again in different ways. An anchored ship cannot sail. The goat chained in the yard cannot escape. The tree that grows up and gets chopped down will continue to grow up unless it's pulled out by the roots. Ooh, it's getting tricky. That sounds weird. You're going to continue to have pain during childbirth. Plagues. All of these are representing cyclical pain elements that are parts of the story. Now, so we have to look for all that variation. Well, we just understand that every bit of it, that what we read is analogous and that it fits in the psyche. We shift the terms from what they sound like. Now, in this verse, we're going to do the same thing. Let's take a look at it real quick. Okay, I'll just read the verse here. It says, for even though they knew God, they did not glorify him as God or give thanks, but they became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish heart was darkened. This is a personal verse that applies to everybody. And people that follow my work, look, it's 21. You know what that means. It fits on that template of those 22 repeating numbers that repeat 6,000 times in the Bible as part of that number grid. Okay, so what this is each one of us. What is God? They did not give thanks. Let's stop and talk about something for a second. This is let's get to a certain place of understanding. I have to back up, and we've got to learn something completely new, something you've never heard or considered before. All right, let's do it like this. Let's do it through a drill. Right now, you're just listening to me, so paying attention, all that. Let's stop for a second. Right now, we would be considered standing outside the narrow gate. Now, what I'm going to do is pause for like 5 or 6 seconds here in a minute. But when I do, what I want you to do is stop listening to me. I'll just be quiet. But what I want you to do is to think of a memory in your mind that you have that's something in there that's bothersome to you. It's going to be between you and somebody else. It's some kind of an issue that is not resolved. It's something that's ongoing. What I want you to do when I stop talking is stop and ponder that situation. Just give it your full attention. Okay? Go. All right. Turn back to me again. You just entered the narrow gate. And what you were doing at that point is looking at the mote in your eye. That's what needs to be, that's the ought against your brother right there, that if resolved, your Father who sees in secret rewards you in secret. Your life automatically unfolds if you resolve these issues right here. Okay, so entering the narrow gate is that. Now, what is God? When you're in there with the memories, or in your mind, in your consciousness, think of the times where you have an inner dialogue happening. This most notably maybe at night, if you think of it, if you're in a point where it's a stressful life, there's a point where humans naturally 3, 4, 5 in the morning wake up tossing and turning in a fit. There's something you can't resolve. There's a mental turmoil, and it's disturbing your calm. It's making your life tough. And every once in a while, there's a third voice that comes in and says, hey, There's nothing you can do. You got to let it go. And while you're experiencing that voice talking, you don't feel the emotions either. But this voice came in unsolicited somewhere. And if you knew that that was God, you could stop and say, oh, wait a minute. You're the one I need to talk to. This is a higher awareness or a higher something out there that you can even see comes in and talks to you. This is the real you and not the memories we're living through. What has happened is that we were born in of this, and we lived mentally in concert with this higher awareness. However, we had no mental cognition. As life went on, we began to live through our memories, and the memories are what we became. And at some point in time, if you're the right person, you will learn that, understand that, and know that all the time this higher awareness is where you need to be living, and these memories need to be resolved. And that's what all of the material is getting to. Let's go read his verse again and take a look at what is there. And you see why I had to set that up. That's how we're going to interpret this. For even though they knew God, this is each of us, even though they knew God, when we're born, we're connected with the higher awareness. We did not glorify him as God or give thanks. We did not continue to face the higher awareness. What we did is we gradually turned towards our memories as we developed them, starting out very small and getting more and more complex. But they became futile in their thoughts. Yet there we are, becoming more complex, and their foolish heart was darkened. The heart is the feelings. The heart is what? How do you darken a heart? Heart is what we feel. Feelings come from what? Feelings come from memories. So that means we're no longer connected with the higher self. Their foolish hearts were darkened. If I were to provide an example of that, a previous example, right? This is something repeating right off the start in Genesis. In the beginning, there's Adam and Eve, and they were connected with God, but they went off and first sinned. That represents now we're having these mental experiences. And then we have eventually what happens is the flood happens. And what happens during that time frame? God disappears right at the end of Cain and Abel's story and does not reappear again until it's time for the calling. So there we have an indicator that we have lost connection with the higher awareness, and when it's time for us to go, oh, I see what happened in my life, I'm going to rectify these things. At that moment, we reconnect with the higher awareness, because that's how we have to do it. This is who we truly are. Somewhere up here, that our conscious lives in concert with this disconnected from the memories perception. It's the kingdom of heaven within. It's nirvana. It is the promised land. That's just in this material. It's very common. In Greek myth, it might be the golden fleece, or you might find in King Arthur, it's the Holy Grail. There's a place that we're seeking in these template stories that represents the human life, and that we want to get to a place where you are now disconnected from that early life self and living free of it, but living through this, whatever this is, this higher awareness is up here. When Eckhart Tolle talks about his enlightenment, when he realized he's having an inner dialogue, I can't live with myself anymore. Who is it that if I can't live with myself, there's got to be two of us in here, isn't there? And he began to realize that is exactly it. That higher awareness right there is God.
The scriptures teach that God himself has already proven himself to everybody. He is evident within their own hearts, their own minds, and God made it evident to them. The problem is their hearts, they are wicked. They suppress the truth in unrighteousness.
You know what I'm going to do is cut him off right here. I'm going to go and interpret from 18 back down here to where we finished off, and then we'll go and listen to what he says. I'm going to take it all the way to the psyche, to the mentally interactive level. Then we're going to listen to him, and he's going to have one of those second layer, outward looking religious, I'm going to interpret it my way, things to say. All right, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. The wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Everything will come from here. Suppress the truth and unrighteousness. Truth is being disconnected from things. Unrighteousness means I am now judging life experiences and living through that mass of memories. That's what he's doing, living through a mass of memories. Because that which is known about God is evident within them. That's the higher awareness. We can connect with that. It is evident within us. We always have the inner dialogue, but we don't look inward and say, that's God. We look outward and say, God is somewhere out in space. While the atheist says, no, it's not. Meanwhile, hey guys, here it is. It's inside, but it's not what you think it is. For God made it evident to them. Yeah, we're going to have that inner dialogue. It's going to say, hey, you know what to do. How come you're not doing it? And then we just give, through fear, we give back into the fear and the memories and fall back into it, is what's happening. For since the creation of the world, since my birth, his invisible attributes, the automatic way that this functions in the memories, the eternal power in the divine nature, the eternal power that there will always be, those memories are going to be, as long as they're left in place, why do they keep happening over and over again? There's got to be power for them to manifest somewhere. Your memories are holding the power for you to live your life comes from the universe. You use it as you want, but we don't know that. The power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made. So what is clearly seen is the evidence of the manifestation of your life experiences, being understood through what has been made. The life experiences, that's the manifestation of them. This is, I am now seeing there are parallels. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching is teaching the same material here at this core level. And caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Caught in whatever you're hanging on to, you see it repeat. An anchored ship cannot sail is exactly what that is. This is telling us what you're hanging on to is going to continue to cycle in just weird verbiage. I'm telling you, this is going to repeat over and over again. This teaching is just going to repeat over and over in a story format that wanders all over the place. They just keep shifting analogs. It goes in a mental hierarchy. It's tricky, but they had all day and all life. Give up the iPhone. What would you do? In fact, the first time it appears in the Bible is in Genesis, the first, number 1 creation story, day 3, when the trees are made that produce the seeds that produce more trees that produce more seeds, that this grows from within our garden. This is whatever gets planted in the garden. That's the decision I've made. I have made a choice. I like this. I don't like that. That's shameful. That's something here. As soon as that happens, the tree begins to grow, that emerges, that continues to produce more of it. It's going to cycle in life. That's where it first appears. And look at your life. That's what happens. Yeah, the things I have judged are manifesting, have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. For even though they knew God, they did not glorify him. We're losing connection with the higher awareness and give thanks, but they became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish heart was darkened. Somewhere in the Gospel of Philip, I'm going to paraphrase this. I remember one, though, that's like, recognize what is in your sight, and you will understand what is behind it, or something like that. You will understand what drives it. When we're looking at physical things happening, that's the final manifestation of forces that are already in action. And we're in those forces. So when we're manifesting things, it's because we're in that flow. And if we want to change our flow and change the manifestation, that's coming from up here, from an energy-based memory state where we're hanging on to things. The more we hang on to, the worse our flow is. The less we hang on to, the better the flow is. That's how we get to enlightenment, by clearing out the mote in the eye, resolving the odd against the brother. Yeah. Professing to be wise, they became fools, to exchange the glory of incorruptible God for the image and the likeness of a corruptible man, and of birds, and of four-footed animals and crawling creatures. So they're talking about idols there in this old material here. But they're talking about more of that. Professing to be wise, they became fools. And that's exactly who is teaching when you look at the material and you don't interpret it at the level of psyche, you look at it as a supernatural teaching that's very vague, so you just make it what it works to you. Yeah, professing to be wise, they became fools. That's who we're going to listen to right here.
And by the way, if there are atheists out there who truly do not know that God exists, then they would be with excuse. They would be on the day of judgment justified in their unbelief because they didn't have enough knowledge. They didn't know that God existed, but that's wrong.
Can I just also say, using the Bible to try and prove God's existence won't work with any atheist. Let me tell you that for free. Please move on, sir.
So the fact is, nobody needs an argument for the existence of God. What people need is to be called out on their sin and called to repentance so that they believe in the gospel and get saved.
The hubris of some of these creationists is quite amusing, is it not?
Second thing we have to recognize is that there's a difference between proof and persuasion. I can prove God's existence all day long, but someone who does not want God to exist and wants to live in their sin is not going to accept it.
I promise you, my friend, I listen to you now with an open mind.
All right, Dan's trying to keep the video short. I want to hack the guy up a little bit more on what he said right here. First of all, what I want to say is proof is something that is, there's different ways of getting proof, but to use proof for a supernatural claim is just a no-no. It's a bozo no-no. Anytime somebody has a supernatural claim on the table and then they start throwing proof in there, it's not going to work. You have a faith-based claim, and it has to do with supernatural, which means that it can't be examined, it can't be looked at. People have said before, disprove God. I can do it in 2 steps. 2 steps I can disprove God. You get to participate. Number 1, show me God. I'll wait my turn.
Take it away.
Now let's talk about the 3 ways you can prove God's existence with any atheist. These are generally the 3 ways that they would accept. The first type of proof we can use is rational type proofs, meaning we can reason on our own with our own minds to conclude that God exists. Now I'm not going to spend much time on this one because most atheists that I've come into contact with don't think this way. They wouldn't accept this type of proof.
All right, always get behind what's being said too. There's something more going on here than what is at the surface. If you stay on the surface with the conversation, you're going to get lost as they are. What is behind what he is saying there? What is he doing though? He's obviously using reasoning processes. I use reasoning processes. Why do we get to different places if we're using identical reasoning processes? The reasoning processes may not be the same, but here's the biggest problem right up front. They're starting out with a faith-based claim and are using reasoning processes to try and prove a supernatural. So they're using all kinds of physical things to try and prove something that can't be proven. I am not looking to prove or disprove God. I'm looking for the truth. I want to know what's really there. I want to know what the truth is. So I'm going to use reasoning processes that are different. I'm going to be open to everything that is visible, that's identifiable, that is observable through science and own personal observations. I'm not going to deny things that are not true or that I haven't experienced. Even supernatural experiences that everybody has to some degree, and it gets mistaken for something spiritual and mystical. We live in a human collective, in an emotional field that's shared, and sometimes we connect in a little stronger ways than the 5 senses, and that just looks magical. But it's normal. Everybody does it. This is why when you worship, you feel better, and when you protest, you feel worse. We got positive and negative fields that we're working within, and we can feel them when they're super strong. And when they're not super strong, we're still living in them. However, a lot of people get God complexes over it.
For example, the ontological argument is the most popular rationalist argument. It goes like this: God is the greatest conceivable being, omniscience, omnipotence, etc. Now, this maximally great being must also exist in reality rather than just our minds, because if it only exists in our minds, then it wouldn't really be a maximally great being.
This is begging the question 101. Just because you define God as a being that must exist doesn't mean that that actual being exists. I could define a perfect tropical island as being something that must exist to be perfect. But that doesn't make such an island real, does it?
Yeah, that's one of those arguments you just think, how does a brain do that? And do you consider anything else? Are you so isolated in your thinking that you can't apply your process to something more broad? It's so isolated. I can imagine many, 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 many things that I know are not real. To say that if we can imagine God proves it's real is like, what the?
So then, God, the greatest conceivable being, must exist in reality. Basically, if you can think about God, then he must exist. So as you can see, this argument starts with your mind and reasons up to God.
But you think about God because of a book written by multiple authors over hundreds of years. This argument presupposes a concept that is entirely reliant on human storytelling.
Now, from the atheist perspective, this is just a bad argument, because from their perspective, they can't conceive of such a being. If you describe this God as perfectly righteous, then he would not allow any evil at all in this world, and I see evil in this world, therefore I don't think such a being exists. So rationalist type proofs are relative. You can make this argument, but so can they. They have their mind and they're reasoning this way, and you have your mind and you're reasoning that way to God. They're going to reason this way away from God. And who's to say who's reasoning correctly?
So you've just debunked your own first proof that can persuade any atheist. Great. Please continue.
He pointed out too, they have reasoning this way, you have reasoning that way. What is the drive? What is the purpose of the reasoning? Are you looking for what is there, or are you looking to prove that God exists and to discount and disprove everything that doesn't support the claim? That's all I see happening from theists like this at times. It's a non-sell. It works in their groups only. It's actually from outside. It's like, this is ridiculous.
Let's move on to number 2. This is the most common type of proof that atheists want. It's empirical proof, scientific proof, observational data. Seeing is believing. If I don't see it, if I didn't see Jesus rise from the dead, then I have no reason to believe.
Good luck with this one.
A very common empiricist type proof is the cosmological argument. You see, we observe all of these causes and effects in the real world. We see all these effects, right? Let's go back to the cause. All effects have causes, therefore there must be an ultimate first cause, and that first cause we call God.
At the moment, we call it the Big Bang, but there is no shame in not knowing that first cause. As an atheist, the beginning of the universe is a concept I don't really struggle with. Yes, I'd love to know, but I'm fine not knowing.
Recently, there was this controversy around Mary apparitions supposedly being better proof for Christianity than the Gospels, because there's all sorts of eyewitnesses who sensed this, and it's a lot harder to deny this miracle than the Gospel accounts, right? Now, again, many atheists simply don't find these arguments convincing, at least for the cosmological argument. They just say,
I was 9 years old going out the back door of my house. I was reaching for the doorknob and it was almost like I felt a palm on my head. Solid stopped me dead in my tracks. I heard in my head, Larry's dead. Larry's my brother, 11 years old. I shook that off. He was outside playing in the woods on his own. I went up and found him and he was hanging. What was that? I've had experiences. That does not mean that everybody else must believe that God exists if I tell that story. So it happened to me, or it happened to a group of people. That doesn't matter. Groups of people get together and they mass up and they think and feel the same. Go worship in church and get caught up in that field of feelings. If your mind is caught up into that, you will experience that field. You will feel it. Just figure out what it is. It's emotional, isn't it? You'll get caught up in bad and hate in the same way. We evolved with fear and joy. We run from fear. We head towards joy.
Yeah, I see cause and effect in the world. However, there's no reason to conclude that this first cause is God, or if there even is a first cause.
Exactly, and you can't empirically prove that either.
The fact is, I see all these effects in the natural world. How can I reason from all these natural effects to a supernatural cause? I believe that through scientific observation and experimentation, we're going to find out how the universe came to be, and we don't need to accept your God of the gaps argument. Also, everybody's experiences are different. Let's say there's two people in a car, one in the driver's seat and the other in the passenger seat. The one in the driver's seat looks down and sees a gas pedal and says, hey, there's a gas pedal. I have sensed with my eyes, with my foot, right? I put my foot on the gas pedal. There is a gas pedal. But what about the passenger? He doesn't see a gas pedal. He can't feel a gas pedal. He doesn't see, therefore he does not believe.
Ridiculous example, because the person in the back seat likely knows how cars work, and as such knows that a gas pedal exists and that it makes the car move.
Agreed. That was a stupid example, incredibly stupid. I mean, if somebody tells me they're touching that's what happens when you're grasping, when you really have nothing. Who listens to something like that? Oh yes, I don't know there's a gas pedal there. That proves God. You know what? If you distill all of this down, what are you looking at? They're grabbing things from the physical world and saying that they can only be there because of God. Distill it down, no matter how they're changing the verbiage. This is what they're saying: existence, therefore God. Anything beyond that is just obfuscation. And a mind that is capable of thinking that has gone bad.
Also, just take two people growing up in the United States, growing up in the church. One Christian is going to say, hey, I've prayed to God all my life. I've seen him do wonderful things in my life. And this is why I believe, because he just keeps doing good things. Someone who was raised in the church and then falls away from the faith is going to say, I kept praying. I kept reading the Bible. I kept going to church, doing Bible studies. And my dog got run over. I got cancer. My child died. There was a hurricane that blew my house away. I do not see God doing any good things in my life. Therefore, I don't believe in him anymore.
This is an excellent point, actually. People are, on the whole, selfish. So if their belief does not benefit them, then surely doubts start to creep in. Does that beg the question then that luck plays a massive part in people's belief when it comes to praying?
They say, even if there is a God, he must be an evil God for bringing all these bad things into my life, so he doesn't deserve my respect. Now, the third way we can prove God's existence is using the pragmatic approach.
So we're already on the third proof, and the first two aren't good enough. Right. Okay.
You see, when people stick to the principles of Christ, loving your neighbor as yourself, going to church, there's this community, people loving each other, building each other up in love. Look at Western civilization, which is founded on a lot of Christian values. Just look at all the good that has come out of it.
Right. First off, humans had moral instincts way before organised religion came along. Secondly, the Crusades, the 30 Years' War, the Spanish Inquisition. Need I say more?
Essentially, Christianity works, therefore it's true. Good things are coming out of it, therefore we should believe in God. Now again, a lot of atheists might not find this convincing, but some do. Some might find the empiricist proofs good. Some might find the rationalist proofs good. But the thing is, all of these are subjective proofs. You can use the same kind of argumentation for a serial killer who believes that the greatest good is killing as many people as he can. It brings him so much joy. He wants to get his message out there. There is no justice in this world. And then he ends his life screaming, I succeeded in my life. The pragmatist proof that killing is a good thing.
So hang on, you're debunking your own third proof now as well. What's going on?
Some atheists might say, hey, I don't think Christianity works out. Look at all you bigots out there telling us what we should do with our lives, with our bodies. I do not think that Christianity is good for the world. Look at all the division in the church. You call that unity and building each other up in love? Look at all the arguments that we have online, theological debates. So the fact is that these three types of proofs, they can work sometimes. Some people can be convinced by them, but they aren't the ultimate proof, an objective proof that nobody can deny.
Let's hear that one then. Come on, buddy.
Now, the fourth way of proving God's existence, which is really the only objective way to prove God's existence, because with the other proofs, it's just your word, your thoughts, your reasoning, your experiences versus the atheists, and so you're just going to go back and forth forever. Now, can God work with those other types of proofs to bring someone to repentance? Yes, of course. If the Christian is faithful and trying to incorporate scripture, someone may come to faith because they heard the words of Christ and they believed, right? But the only way to objectively prove God's existence is going to be using transcendental proof.
Ooh, this should be interesting. Go on then.
Now, this way of proving things is extremely unnatural to us. We're raised with seeing is believing, scientific observation. Prove to me the Bible is true without using the Bible. Where's the archaeological evidence? Where's what we see in the real world? How does this prove the Bible is true or that God exists, right? That's what we're raised with. That's what I get all the time in the comments. People want that type of proof. We understand that type of proof very well. But the transcendental proof, this is going to be the objective way to prove the existence of God, our ultimate foundation for knowledge. Basically, the transcendental proof says this: without God, you would not be able to prove anything at all in an objective fashion.
What?
Listen to him carefully. What he just said was existence, therefore God. No matter, don't let him stack bullshit on top of it. Look under the words. Look what's driving him. That's just a manifestation. What's behind the words?
Transcendental proof says this: without God, you would not be able to prove anything at all in an objective fashion.
What? Without God, you can't what?
Without God, you would not be able to prove anything at all in an objective fashion.
So hang on. Forgive my ignorance here, but without God, we can't prove anything in an objective fashion. Objectivity doesn't require God. It comes from consistent natural laws, empirical evidence.
And remember, don't get caught up in the words. He's simply on the foundation of existence, therefore God. And then moving up from that, using language that is meant to keep you from seeing that foundation. Drive them, pin them right to the foundation. Pin them to their foundation.
And logic and reason. Now, this is begging the question again, and it's circular reasoning. I can't believe that after all that, this was your ultimate proof.
Okay, I'm going to end it, that portion of it right there, and I'm just going to add in some of my own thoughts. Again, link below. Dan summarizes some more things up there, but I've got my own thoughts on this. First of all, if you study religions across the board, religions require some conduct, and Christianity does as well, but it's so diverse. There are thousands of denominations. What does that tell you? Are they following a religion, or is the religion following them? If there's one God, how come there is not one religion? Right off the bat, you go, okay, these are evolutionary tools. They're tribal mechanisms. That's what religions are. And you can see that they act that way. Abrahamic ones start right off with you just listen to his language. It's just like already this division, me against you. There's this demonization that's already, it's a part of the religion, but it's also a part of evolution. It's my tribe against yours. So let's just put that right into the religion. Christianity, in effect, when they were told to just worship Jesus, then you think about that and go, here's a God up here then that doesn't really care about my conduct. They just want me to worship them. So what do we have? Look at what the hell is Christianity? It's a fucking train wreck as far as religions go. What it is justification for people. It's used in different ways, but in its worst, it's really incredibly horrible, because people were not told, you need to understand and listen to Jesus. They were told, just kiss his ass. So what do? They don't know a damn thing about the Bible. They create whatever. You end up looking at it and go, I don't care what they say. I don't give a damn what they say. You look at it and you define it for what it really is. It's idol worshiping. It is idol worshiping. They're not following a program. They're worshiping an idol, thinking that they're going to go forever. And I look at that and go, I can't hardly stand living on earth with people like this. Why would you spend an eternity? And what are you going to do in heaven forever? NASCAR? Motorcycles? I don't know what. Tearing up the side of mountains? Flying across heaven to somewhere else? What are you going to do forever when everybody up there is the same as everybody here? That sounds like hell to me. And we know that hell came about. That was not originally part of the teaching. Neither was first sin, which hooks right into it. Guess what? You're going to die for something you never did. But if you join our club, you're saved. And you don't have to do anything except worship this idol. Bingo. You're a Christian. And they're proud of that. Now, if you are a Christian and you just took offense to that and said, I'm not that way, I'm going to say, fine. Christianity is. Christianity allows it. Christianity allows what is happening in America today. And I don't see any of you policing Christians that are assholes. Somebody's got to do it. You're all under that umbrella. All right, those are my comments. Thoughts, questions? How was this video? It's different than other ones I've done before. It still covers some of that interpretation, though, and it shows how the theist and the atheist, and Dan's he's an intelligent guy, but he's not seeing that third layer, that interactive mental layer. But anyway, okay, well, hope the video was fun and interesting. See you in the next one. In the end, I want to say this. It's in the material. It's all metaphorical. They carry the ark. I'm trying to look inside. There are those who deny the ark. There are those who carry the ark. There's those who look inside. He's standing outside the narrow gate, where outward all the directions lead to destruction. Outward what? He's interpreting it like it's supernatural, like it's out there in space. He can't talk to the God inside. He hasn't entered the narrow gate. He hasn't made the material his. He is not that. I am that. You are that. We are.